Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today is King of Swords in its upright. If this card looks familiar, we've been pulling it a lot over the last few days, and it's always been its upright, which we appreciate. Masculine and feminine energy doing a lot of work right now in relationality to maintaining and holding firm as it relates to convictions. It is having a bit of a different impact on masculine and feminine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. For the masculine and feminine energy that's doing a lot of this work in healing deep path work from the past, this is a lot of that change of perception that is having an impact on one's own present experience or present context. Now, you will recall, if you've been following along, a lot of this work that we see that has been occurring for a lot of the energy that's doing some of this deeper healing right now. It's not necessarily a place or space that is requiring some kind of immediate moment of action. That ability to see something, to introspect, to understand something to a greater degree, especially for a lot of the energy that is on that healing journey, that is fortifying one's own commitments to oneself as it relates to the path work that you are on and one's own energetic commitments or sense of self. You'll recall that a lot of the energy that was doing this work wasn't necessarily doing it to enact some kind of external change, but rather for the goal of understanding the self in a higher way to be able to facilitate coming into that manifestation of one's highest version of self. And for the masculine energy to be able to go back to a past experience and to feel something in a way that one had not been able or allowed oneself to feel something before, to almost be able to integrate that energetic wound. That is the masculine energy that is potentially feeling that sense of strength, that sense of conviction, that sense of fortitude, because that isn't a strength in masculine that requires the masculine energy to feel like they need to become rigid, that makes them feel like they need to effectively shut off a part of themselves in order to facilitate a false sense of strength. But that ability of a masculine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to allow themselves to feel the full capacity of their emotions, but not become reactive to them, to embody the emotional experience. That is the masculine energy that feels like they're almost coming into that sense of a higher level of strength, because that is articulating the choice to be strong in the face of feeling a wide range of emotionality, as opposed to being strong because one is effectively shut off or closed down one part of oneself. We are also seeing here that a lot of the masculine energy is taking this on as a personal journey, especially if these are space-specific situations where masculine is looking at past experiences and recognizing that the reason that they experienced a wound from the first place was due to a feminine that was in an unhealthy relationship with masculine that effectively allowed that moment of subjecting others to emotional wounds instead of embodying the ability to experience the range of emotionality. This is the conviction in the masculine that almost affirms and says that the ability to heal is often not facilitated in not feeling something, in something no longer hurting, but that conviction in not allowing a hurt that is experienced to perpetuate going forward. While for feminine energy, we see that a lot of this similar path work is being integrated to a certain degree. And that path work of experience, that ability to navigate something, that ability to hold space and to feel that sense of externalizing a wound. Because for a lot of the feminine energy right now, that ability to experience something that you may have immediately over-internalized from the past path work, that ability to recognize those spaces or places where you may have overly internalized something that was occurring around you or was being given to you, that is also creating a moment of energetic resilience for the feminine. Because if these are spaces or places where feminine was holding too much accountability and judgment for themselves because they felt like they were not making taking the grade, that is the moment that the feminine recognizing that the moment that we ask ourselves whether we are navigating expectations, the better question being whether those expectations are the standards through which we are holding ourselves accountable, or if those are us overly embodying the energetic standards of outside energy. That ability to navigate forward in that way with a sense of energetic discernment, that is amplifying the strength that the feminine is feeling in being very mindful of the energy through which they move forward with. Both of these energies are effectively facilitating that sense of breakthrough and conviction on path work. And for the feminine energy doing this work right now of deeper healing, I'm going to say it again. One of the things that's helping the feminine energy doing so is having healed masculine energy in their present experience that serves as the context or validation point in seeing that such a thing is true, that such a thing is present, and something that is being observed is something that one can recognize is an option, is a choice that can be made. So we see even now that for both of these energies coming into that are working deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, different energetic lessons that are reaffirming one's own conviction in recognizing and identifying the path work, not necessarily easing what you're feeling, but feeling it and perceiving it in a different degree that allows a new energetic lesson to come into place from something that you may have experienced from the past. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, a lot of this work right now that we are seeing is a direct result of coming into the divine union frequency. Because for a lot of this energy, that those shifts that we see are occurring in your perception have to do with experiencing and working with a counterpart that is committed to similar path work. For masculine and feminine energy, that is that moment of feeling one's own priorities that shift as you move deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency. For a lot of the masculine energy, we've seen that masculine energy coming into the divine union frequency recently has been doing a lot of work in experiencing the feminine's own path work. And if these are places or spaces where the masculine energy has been internalizing those wounds of the feminine, almost feeling like their experiences are their own, and then simultaneously not allowing oneself to get reactive, just allowing oneself to embody and feel that experience, much like we see the energy doing in the heart of the divine union frequency. This can be much more triggering for the masculine energy coming into divine union, because these aren't potentially spaces or places that are deep in the heart of the past, but potentially things that are a little bit closer to home. That conviction of not wanting to reopen a wound is almost creating that sense of energetic protectiveness, creating something where something does not exist, because a lot of that energy coming into divine union right now is almost reaffirming their own commitment in relationality to what they feel that sense of security around. So for the masculine energy, that ability to not only feel and hold space for the feminine energy's own wounds and insecurities, but not allowing oneself to get reactive, just allowing yourself to feel something and expand your own heart space. This is the masculine that feels like they are attaining that new level or higher degree of strength that can be best identified and articulated as responsibility. While for feminine energy, seeing masculine energy that is doing so in that way, it's a little bit more difficult for the feminine, because again, much like we see the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency as being able to perceive past wounds from a different context in relationality to seeing expressions of healed masculine energy in their immediate present context. For the feminine energy to experience that coming into the divine union frequency, that is also a moment wherein the feminine feels like they build that deeper bond of energetic connection with masculine, due to the fact that the feminine energy can tangibly feel what it feels like when a masculine is prioritizing the connection of the feminine, as opposed to just articulating that something is there. While for masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, this is why we see that a lot of these new energetic connections may feel like they are reaching, I want to say, a challenging moment, because this is the moment that we see that a lot of the energy in separation is really feeling the conviction as it relates to some of the lessons that may have been taken in past cycles. For feminine energy, if there's a connection that is building forward in masculine right now, that ability to almost energetically let something go by almost encouraging or requiring the masculine to be able to articulate on what their intentionality is. That is the feminine energy that is holding the manifestation of masculine energy, that is moving towards feminine with authenticity and conviction in relation to what it is that they aspire to build with the feminine, as opposed to just wanting to be with the feminine. While for the masculine energy right now that is in separation coming towards the feminine, that sense of, again, building into that ability of identifying and recognizing that the only way to fulfill a manifestation with the feminine is not something that you can build around them. It's not something that you can lead the feminine energy into, but wanting to feel that sense of an energetic counterpart that wants the same things as you do, and being able to move forward with that sense of clarity and authenticity. This is a lot of the masculine energy that is feeling like that sense of being able to come from a space or place of integrity today that can often feel somewhat challenging because it requires the masculine energy to be vulnerable in the process. Second card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here our Queen of Pentacles, and they're in their upright. So look at this combination of cards that we're seeing right now. This is beautiful across all of the frequencies, because this is the energy that is maintaining their focus in relationality to their commitments to themselves, even if in separation. And so this is the feminine energy that is almost asking and the requiring the masculine energy to come towards them with that sense of integrity. And when we say integrity, we mean, again, authenticity combined with vulnerability. This is the feminine energy almost building that sense of resilience in themselves by asking that from the masculine. But what we appreciate about the feminine energy that is doing so in this way is this is not a feminine energy that is demanding or forcing the masculine to embody these characteristics and qualities. Rather, this is the feminine energy that is almost amplifying their own sense of energetic security in wanting to identify whether something is there, to be able to recognize and discern whether they feel like there is that similarity in relationality to what one is trying to build and how one might take something going forward. While for masculine, that same ability here, wanting to come towards the feminine from a place of authenticity, is almost required in feeling that there is a feminine energy that is in that you are moving towards, that is in a state or space where they can navigate, manage your authenticity, have space for your own energetic truth. So we see even now that that is allowing, even during what may feel like challenging conversations in separation, as what may be feeling akin to breakthroughs, because the challenge isn't something that is being forced on the counterpart, but rather the challenge is how one is challenging one's own self in how one is moving towards another. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, that same sense of balance is coming into play for a lot of the energy coming into divine union frequency, because again, these energies are working as counterparts. And what do we mean by counterparts? Does this mean that these energies are just moving in complete parallel to one another? Are they doing the same energetic thing? No, a good counterpart energy is recognizing and identifying what another needs, so thereby you can be able to facilitate it, right? So both of these energies are almost working in harmony right now to recognize and identify what the other needs in order to feel that sense of building into a point of strength. For masculine energy right now, that is the moment of the masculine continuing, I want to say, to lead by example towards the feminine, holding that point of integrity. But that point of integrity isn't coming through for a masculine that is masking their emotional center, but more a masculine that is showing the feminine that they have that ability to feel the full expression of their emotional feelings while still staying strong and grounded. For the feminine energy, that is the feeling of looking towards counterpart and feeling the sense of true strength, because that is feminine seeing masculine that isn't trying to not to block their emotional center, but has mastered the ability of feeling the full expression of what they're feeling and still being strong throughout it. That makes the feminine feel secure enough to offer the masculine that same level of degree of stability, but more in the relationality of energetic resilience, being able to hold a stable sense of self that makes it easier for the masculine to feel secure with the feminine, because that is a masculine that knows that the feminine energy is continually doing that work in understanding the self and maintaining a sense of stability that doesn't exist outside of the feminine. That's not the feminine that is seeking that sense of like externalized validation, but the feminine energy that is grounded enough in their own energetic center that they navigate their own map. They have their own sense of self to such a degree that they're able to lead towards the masculine and let the masculine feel secure in being their most authentic sense of self. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is the stability that is coming through a lot of this path work in looking back at the past with a new sense of perception. If these were spaces or places where masculine may have rejected feeling the full emotional reactivity of having experienced a wound, that ability of the masculine to feel vulnerable enough, to know it is safe to feel vulnerable, to feel that expansion of their own emotions, that isn't being caused by the feminine energy that is healed around them, but is being facilitated by a feminine energy that makes the masculine energy understand and recognize that it is safe for them to feel their expression of emotions in a way that it is not going to create the same conditions wherein a wound may have been formed. Similarly for feminine, if these are spaces or places where feminine internalized too much a past experience to such an extent that a wound was created in the feminine doubting themselves or feeling that sense of uncertainty as to who they were or what they were, the feminine energy building that sense of security and resilience in terms of feeling like they can come into their highest expression of self and be seen and appreciated by the masculine. That is, again, not feminine energy that is doing that work because of the masculine, but feminine energy that is feeling like they are being boosted up, or they feel like they are being supported in identifying that sense of self that is helping them see the template of healed masculine energy, that is helping the feminine energy recognize in past experiences wherein there may have been masculine around them that didn't necessarily just accept the feminine in their highest expression of self, but more was looking at the feminine as someone that they desired to change, that they desired to alter. So we see even now that both of these energies coming into a higher sense of themselves through doing this work that is being facilitated actively by the healed energetic counterpart. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here our Knight of Swords, and it's in its upright. We saw this card yesterday as well. Look at all of this sword energy, but I have to say, if I have to see the Knight of Swords popping up, I'm okay seeing the Knight of Swords popping up in the context of the King of Swords also being on the table, because that ability of the masculine to recognize that ability to feel what you feel does not mean that one becomes less strong. It means that when you decide to move forward, when you desire to activate on something, you recognize that that same level and degree of strength is still existent. The emotions don't eradicate or do not become a weakness. Rather, they lend intentionality to what you put your conviction towards, what you put your purpose towards. This is almost the masculine energy discovering that heightened sense of energetic strength via that ability to feel like one is coming into higher control with one's own sense of energetic activation. While for feminine energy right now, deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is the feminine energy recognizing and identifying through that path of discernment, having that template of what healed masculine energy looks like, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. That is helping the feminine energy identify the difference of the masculine that feels like they're doing that path work. Almost the feminine energy trying to build that sense of energetic resiliency, not only for the sense of their own self, but recognizing that as they move forward and heal in this capacity, that is the moment of the feminine, almost again, creating that standard through which they are articulating that that is the best way to move forward with the masculine in such a way that that requires the masculine to come into that heightened understanding of self. But these energies are working in tandem. So this isn't something that one can just do for one's own sake or one's own self. This is the feminine energy that's recognizing the value and the intrinsic importance of utilizing that path of discernment, because when the feminine energy holds themselves to that high standard, they also hold the energy of masculine to the same standard. And that is the moment that the masculine is almost able to find themselves by way of trying to meet the energetic standard of the feminine. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is a little bit more of a reactivity point, because this isn't necessarily happening on the metaphysical level so much as it is happening more in that sense of really building that sense of commitment and path work going forward. For both masculine and feminine energy right now, that sense of affirmation, these are energies right now coming into divine union that really feel like they're creating something from nothing, because the commitment itself is almost taking shape. It is adjusting, it is accommodating, it is creating things in their own experience and in their own existence where something was not before. And that feeling of doing so together, that feeling of energetic strength, it is the amplification point in relationality to where one's own commitments are driven. So we see even now that these energies are building that sense of energetic resilience that are being punctuated in relationality to the prioritization of what the other energetic counterpart needs at this time. And that is the amplification of a lot of energy continuing to move even deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency. While for masculine and feminine energy right now in separation, a lot of this path work, I have to say, this is a little bit more of this path work that we're seeing in separation, where we may be feeling a little bit something more akin to the rubber meeting the road. Because if these are energies that are encountering one another in separation, and there's been a lot of discussion in relationality to where you've been or what you've done that have led you to come into connectivity, that moment that is almost creating that need to be able to express the desire and hopes of aspirations going forward are about to kind of meet that impasse point for a lot of these new energetic connections. And a lot of it has to do specifically because some of this energy is building a very strong energetic connection by talking about what has occurred in the past. Again, halfway healed, talking about what occurred in the past, where they are in the present. The other part to see right now in relationality to whether they feel like this energy is building forward towards one another has to do with being able to articulate with where one wants to go, what one aspires to do going forward. So we see even now, this is almost the feminine energy holding the masculine energy accountable and saying, I need to see that ability to do so. I need to see that you have that conviction and pathwork of intentionality and purpose and the confidence to be able to articulate to me what it is that you aspire and desire going forward. That's that feminine energy that's not necessarily forcing the masculine into that modality, but is almost, stating to the masculine that that is something that is energetically required. While for masculine energy in that modality, this is also something that feels like it is a lot of the path work going forward, because this is a lot of masculine energy. If these were spaces or places wherein masculine realizes and recognizes that a heavy part of the lesson from the past was not being open and honest to the feminine about those manifestation goals, this is the masculine energy that is working through a little bit of that anxiety, a little bit of that that fear, a little bit of that potential energetic fight or flight response, as it were, in relationality to wanting to express a need, a desire, but also feeling the anxiety that often comes through in the moment of being energetically vulnerable. I told you we were talking a lot about masculine, working on like what we like to describe as like the army that comes running out of their closet whenever they feel that moment of vulnerability being reached. But what is the masculine energy doing right now, even in separation? They are identifying the difference between acting upon that abandonment wound, acting upon that energetic trigger. This is almost masculine energy that is observing that pathwork in themselves, that is allowing them to address it with a heightened degree of energetic conviction. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have the, oh my gosh, look at all these swords today. Page of Swords in its reversal, Knight of Swords in its upright, King of Swords. So there may be a lot of energy of feminine right now in separation. That is, again, much like the energy in the other frequencies, utilizing that lesson of discernment to identify where the masculine energy is in that pathwork of confidence. What is so amazing about this isn't a feminine energy trying to force a flower. This isn't a feminine energy trying to force a masculine to build that sense of confidence, to be vulnerable about their desires, their wants, and their needs. What is the feminine energy doing? The feminine is being very resilient in terms of articulating what their own aspirations and desires there are, and then they're just utilizing their own powers of observation to see where the masculine energy is. And that's not the feminine energy feeling like they need to become adaptable or changeable to change the mind or to change the frequency of the masculine. This is the feminine energy that's come far enough in their pathwork in separation to just recognize and say what they see from the masculine energy is where the masculine energy is, and just immediately accepting it for where, like, what expression of it is. This is like the Goldilocks effect. Do you see this? So if the feminine is being very resilient in terms of what they're asking the masculine to bring forth and telling the masculine what they desire, this isn't the masculine not trying to force a spring here. This is the masculine looking towards, and this could even be feminine energy, navigating, this could be either a singular masculine energy here for feminine in separation, or this could be feminine navigating and trying to sort and identify the masculine energy around them that has that same similarity of conviction. Because this is the feminine energy that says, look, if I know what my manifestation goals are, and I bring these forward to masculine can either just be open and honest and match that same degree of authenticity and vulnerability. And I recognize the courage it takes for the masculine to do that. That's not about masculine being resilient. That requires the masculine to be very strong in sense of self and having a lot of vulnerability to move with integrity, which is the combination of vulnerability and courage. Or it could create a reactive state in the masculine, whereas the masculine gets triggered and either runs away or gets more evasive because they haven't come into that same sense of energetic confidence enough to be able to express their own manifestation goals. Or the masculine energy could just disappear entirely at that moment because they're too energetically afraid to do so. The feminine energy isn't trying to change that if they see it. The feminine energy is just trying to observe from which facet is the masculine approaching and just saying, there it is. That's all I need to see. That how the masculine energy navigates the conversation about the manifestation goals. The feminine is almost saying, I'm taking everything I need to take from a masculine being able to identify to me via them communicating their manifestation goals, whether they recognize and know themselves. So this is almost the feminine energy saying, I know myself in separation, and looking to the masculine and saying, do you? While for masculine and for the masculine energy moving forward in this way, if you're moving towards the feminine energy that has that stability, that has that groundedness, that knows what they want, this is the masculine energy recognizing that when you move towards feminine energy that knows where they want, there's really only one modality wherein the feminine energy at that point of stability is willing to accept masculine energy, which is the masculine energy that is able to match that same sense of conviction and certainty. So for the masculine energy right now, there could be a moment that you may be feeling a lot of oppositional feelings to a certain extent, because for a lot of the masculine energy right now, this could be feeling like a lot of the lessons of the past are rising to the surface in relationality to how you navigate forward in that way. Because we see even now that this could be a masculine energy that is doing their best to try to come into that space of energetic conviction, right? Which is the combination of feeling vulnerability and also moving forward in an authentic way, but at the same time feeling very energetically triggered to do so, and potentially even feeling a little bit of that anxiety or uncertainty or fear. So this is a lot more challenging space for masculine today, because it could be feeling like you're moving through a lot of those modalities as you try to like stay in or manage into that point of energetic integrity. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this isn't so much a moment that feels like a shift. This is a moment of the energy prioritizing each other because of that recognition point in feeling like you are sharing the same manifestation goals. And a lot of this energy is feeling that sense of that bond that grows, because when we share our manifestation goals, we effectively commit to one another to build something where nothing exists. That is what a manifestation is. So we see even now that for these energies that have done this work in navigating and coming to understand one another more and more, that is that expression that just feels like you are building that point of energetic strength between you. And it is having a different impact on the masculine and feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. For masculine energy, that moment of seeing the feminine energy that is very secure in their own self, that knows themselves, that knows their point of stability, that recognizes and identifies, that does that path work in maintaining that point of energetic resilience. That is a moment where the masculine feels profoundly energetically safe, because the masculine recognizes that that is not a feminine energy that is leaning on the masculine for sense of strength, for a sense of security. That is the expression of a masculine that feels like there's a stable feminine energy that chooses the masculine to share that sense of stability with. And that is beautiful for the masculine, because that allows the masculine to feel like they can be their most authentic sense of self with the feminine at all times. That means that the masculine feels in the divine union energy that they don't need to be the strong one, that they have a place that they can feel vulnerable. That sense of security, that sense of safety creates a sense of masculine feeling that sense of preciousness and wanting to be able to energetically protect it, because that is the masculine that almost looks to the feminine and feels like that expression of saying to someone, you are my home. What do we mean when we say you are my home? You are that place or space that I feel like I can be my most authentic, most vulnerable, safest version, like most, most exposed version of self with. And I feel energetically safe to do so. And why? Because this is not a masculine energy that moves into their most authentic expression of self and becomes someone who subjects others to their emotionality or becomes reactive. That's almost that moment for the masculine that has done this healthy energetic work that almost feels like, again, healing the inner child wounds, allowing that sense of play to arise because you've done that work in being emotionally vulnerable. While for feminine, that ability of seeing a masculine that has done that work, that again, seeing them in that point of vulnerability doesn't feel like that's a masculine that comes into a point of vulnerability and comes into that point of insecurities and doubts and fears that impact the feminine. Rather, this is that masculine energy that's done their own work in almost feeling that vulnerability that feels like that expression of joy. So that's almost the feminine reaffirming their own commitment to masculine, because that is the feminine energy that says to the masculine, I will always be that home for you, because you are someone that has earned that in all of your facets, you are always a joy. You are always a privilege to be in connectivity to, because these are energies that are almost saying to one another, I observe and honor how much work it has taken to become that energetically strong. And it doesn't require you to be strong at every moment. It requires that recognition of continuing to move forward on that path of understanding the self, through which you're able to build that sense of positivity and abundance by continuing to do that work in compassion. And these energies are no longer even just doing that work on their own healing journey, but they're providing it to the counterpart, which is reaffirming their own conviction to that path work going forward. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, if these are spaces or places where you've been healing a lot of wounds in the past, you can see why this is having a bit of a different impact on these energetic frequencies. If these are spaces or places wherein masculine is allowing themselves to feel the full extent of a past wound, that's almost that moment that it feels like you're taking off armor, or allowing oneself to feel something in a way that you never felt it before. It creates, this is masculine that's moving through kind of all of the different vacillations of the grief in navigating something that you're allowing yourself to feel for the first time. And that's that moment. Again, it's not being caused or created by the feminine energy, but for the masculine energy that recognizes that their point of stability is with a feminine, that creates a framework by which they feel like it is safe to be their most vulnerable, authentic expression of self. That is the masculine energy that feels like it is safe to do that level and degree of unpacking. While for feminine energy, for your own ability to do so, being able to look back on past experiences and recognize the difference of masculine energy that truly cares about you coming into your highest version of self, right? That articulation of the difference between I want what's best for you versus I want you to be your best self. That is the feminine energy that is healing a lot of that past wound that may have been created by masculine energy that tried to articulate to the feminine, saying that they knew what was best for the feminine energy, instead of truly being invested and curious in terms of understanding who the feminine energy was. That is being facilitated by a feminine energy in the presence of a masculine, that they feel that sense of being seen, of being recognized, that helps the feminine energy see their own self in a different context. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here the 8 of Pentacles in its reversal. So one of the things that is hard about this is when you recognize and identify this type of work that is so deep in the path work, it can feel a little frustrating. It can feel a little triggering. I'm going to point it out again, for a lot of the energy deep in the heart of doing this level of deep healing, especially around stuff that's from far back in the past. It's not even something anyone can see is happening on the surface. This is deep internal path work. It's like no change that can be externally visible, but it's almost that moment that articulates and says everything changes, because that's that moment of recognizing that it is how one perceives something. I told you, a lot of the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency right now, this doesn't feel like it makes something easier. It almost just shifts something in a way that makes something, it's actually funny because it's trying to make something energetically easier to carry. But at the same time, at the moment of experiencing it, makes something a little bit harder, right? Because if we're identifying these spaces or places where a masculine is allowing themselves to feel something in a way that they didn't allow themselves to feel it, you're almost going through all the processes of emotion that you should have had at the time that you experienced something. It does feel, it's almost that moment being like, why am I doing this to myself? Because that's that moment that you recognize that you need to feel it to heal it. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid, right? While for the feminine, that moment of recognizing and identifying the difference between the energy that feels like it is motivated and built upon that work of helping you identify and come into that sense of understanding oneself, versus that feeling of energy that you feel like you're recovering or healing from, where inadvertent wounds may have been occurred by energy that felt like they knew what was best for you. Both of these energies feeling some of that frustration in recognizing something that, again, it doesn't feel like it's creating a change in you, but sometimes we heal something not because it makes it hurt less, but our own ability to hold something is the affirmation in not allowing something that is unhealthy or unhealed perpetuate forward, right? This is the energy that's almost saying that ability to heal something as much as you can. And in the spaces of things that you cannot heal, the affirmation of saying, I'm not going to allow that unhealed part of the self to facilitate forward. I'm going to see it and recognize it so that I can hold it within, is a lot of the work of the deep energetic healing process, because that is that moment that identifies what you can effectively navigate and change versus what you can at least facilitate pathwork on in not allowing something unhealthy or unhealed to perpetuate. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is going to be more of a fundamental feeling around external frustrations. We saw that there were a lot of navigating right now of external roadblocks, because what occurs, this is the thing that happens when you move forward and you start to build the divine union into the divine union. You're creating that energetic frequency. You're creating something from nothing. Suddenly everything feels like it's creating an obstacle around you. It's not that anything changed. These are things that might not have been problematic in the past, but this is almost the shifting of the energy around where the divine union is forming that almost needs to make that space or place to accommodate to it. And that can sometimes feel very disruptive. But what are the energies doing right now in relationality to feeling any of those frustrations or feeling any of those setbacks or feeling any of those hurdles? This is the energy that is feeling a little bit of that disruption, because the priorities are shifting in such a way that it's requiring a bit of the reorientation on something that may have worked in the past when you were on your own healing journey, that now feels like it's not working because you're healing with a counterpart. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep in the heart, in separation, this is a lot of energy that is building on new connections, but this is a lot of energy that's also recognizing and being very mindful of the difference between the feeling of someone ready to move forward on their own healing journey versus the anxiety of experiencing and encountering someone who is only halfway healed. What do I mean by halfway healed? I mean someone who recognizes and identifies the lessons of the past path work, but is not ready to articulate upon the manifestation of what they want moving forward that would identify someone who is ready to effectively or energetically move forward. For the feminine energy, this is why we see that this is such a challenge to the previous energetic lessons, because there could have been spaces or places in the past where the feminine would have been more malleable, would have been more accommodating, would have been more adaptable to allowing the masculine energy to have a little bit more of that, leeway in terms of like not being able to articulate what they want. We're seeing that a lot of the feminine energy in separation has abandoned that. That's the feminine energy having done a lot of the healing of the feminine energy, saying, I know what it is and I'm trying to manifest. And I'm manifesting masculine that has done the work, and feminine even recognizing and saying, I understand that this is more vulnerable for the masculine, because being able to be open about their manifestation goals feels like it is very vulnerable. But this is the feminine energy saying, I'm looking for strong masculine energy that is strong enough to be vulnerable enough to tell me what it is that they aspire and dream in whatever context that is. And that's the feminine energy that's almost articulating. And this is the beauty of these cards right now. This is the feminine energy saying, it's not my job to change it. It's not my job to convince the masculine. It's not my job to become adaptable enough to make the masculine feel like it's appealing to be able to open up in this way. This is the feminine coming forward in the divine in separation saying, it's just my job to discern it. It's just my job to see if it is there. It is just my job to see if the masculine has achieved that level and degree of understanding the self to such a degree that they are confident enough to tell me something that is very vulnerable. And that's the feminine that feels very frustrating on that, because that's the feminine energy that almost says and affirms and says, in order to recognize that, I have to be willing to let go of an energetic connection if I don't see that it is there. While for the masculine energy, we see even now that could be a masculine energy that's feeling that in separation right now. The masculine almost feeling that sense of, again, if this is work of the masculine that feels like they're halfway healed, encountering or experiencing a feminine that knows what they want, that is grounded, that you recognize isn't going to change you, that you recognize isn't going to accommodate that. It's just kind of that approach of saying, is it present or is it not? This is the masculine energy that is feeling the amplification of both the pathwork that you know that you yourself are trying to hold yourself accountable to, that is being reinforced by the connection or the possibility of coming into connection with a feminine that has that level and degree of understanding of self, that is almost serving as that energetic template in relationality to the possibility of what you could have with such an energetic connection. So even now, this is a moment that for a lot of the masculine energy, this is that moment that is almost challenging you in separation, in as to whether you feel like you can rise to that energetic challenge, whether you're ready to rise to that energetic challenge. And even now we are seeing that this is a masculine energy that realizes that they can't necessarily fake that. This isn't a masculine energy that can pretend or try to lay out those manifestation goals, because that's more of the masculine building into a pathwork of illusion again. But more the masculine trying to identify where they are in their own space, but also recognizing that their conviction is required in relationality to being able to be open and honest with the feminine and build something from a place of authenticity. Continuing, but this might be a little bit more, I want to say a little bit more of an emotionally volatile day for masculine energy, because you can see all of these expressions of energy that are coming through here. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Swords and our Queen of Pentacles in its upright. One card to clarify here. We've got here our Four of Pentacles. Masculine and feminine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, and also the energy that is coming into the divine union frequency. This is that feeling of energetic security that is amplified in the sense of strength that is received via V working with the counterpart energy. Bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. I'm going to say this again. These are not energies that are leaning on one another for that sense of energetic support, for that sense of energetic strength. These are the energies that become stronger within the self, that is being amplified and intensified and deepened by the connection to the counterpart energy. And we see that that energy is building forth in such a way that it's like the more that you work towards that within the self, the tighter the energetic connection becomes, because this is the feminine energy that is continuing to deepen their own sense of self, deepening their own ability to maintain and find that sense of stability within themselves. That is being amplified by healed masculine energy that is reinforcing and encouraging their own ability to perceive the feminine in that way. And what we identify there is that is the feminine energy that feels that sense of confidence as they continue forward in this work, that reaffirms their connection to a masculine that they feel truly sees them and truly supports them in that goal of building that sense of understanding of self. While for masculine, if this is a feminine energy that comes to a lot of work of understanding their own self, that creates a sense of stability in the feminine that feels like security for the masculine, because that is a feminine energy that knows themselves, that the masculine feels they can be their most authentic version of self with, and that doesn't require the masculine to be strong. In fact, it allows and accommodates for the masculine to come to the feminine in any form, but the masculine being able to see that point of feminine that is able to accept them in all of their facets. That is the masculine that feels that amplification of security of a feminine that is able to maintain that point of stability that creates that sense of energetic grounding in the masculine. So both the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency and the energy coming into the divine union frequency, that's that moment of the work of the self being identified and recognized in the counterpart that creates that sense of building together, that energetic tie that binds. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, this is just a moment that may feel like a lot of identification, a lot of clarity of pathwork, a lot of clarity of goals. Feminine energy in separation at a deep point of stability, being very grounded in terms of what it is that they aspire and desire. A lot of the feminine energy in separation is almost just saying, all I am asking from masculine is the same thing that I am seeking within myself, which is a sense of self that is strong enough to be able to articulate what it is that I aspire and desire to build forward from masculine. And this important groundbreaking work that we see a lot of the feminine in separation is doing right now is not saying it's not my job to cultivate that in a masculine. It's not my job to give the masculine energy confidence in terms of recognizing that that's there. It's my job to effectively observe whether the masculine is ready to achieve or is seeking or even seeking that level of energetic connection with the feminine. Because this is the feminine energy that is recognizing and identifying that not all masculine energy even desires that heightened level and degree of connectivity. This is the feminine energy just accepting the masculine for where they find them and just utilizing their own powers of observation to identify what that effectively or energetically looks like. While for masculine in separation, this could be feeling like there's a moment right now, especially if you're moving towards feminine energy that is very stable. That identification point of masculine, that recognizing that feminine energy that is very energetically stable doesn't really have time, doesn't really feel like it has the time to navigate forward on the full breadth of anything that feels like it's more like uncertain. Like this is the masculine energy almost coming into a point of acceptance of identifying and saying to oneself, if I'm seeking stable feminine energy, I need to recognize that that is not feminine energy that is going to accommodate for anything that feels like it is more fickle, that is going to accommodate for feels like anything that feels more fearful, or anything that feels like me coming towards them in a place of lacking confidence or certainty. It's not even going to be accepted. This is more of that masculine continuing forward and feeling propelled on their own lesson to a certain extent by almost feeling that sense of, again, asking themselves what they want, recognizing that that is that moment that if they don't bring that forward, they have to accept that that isn't something that they're not going to be able to move towards a manifestation of feminine that is going to have that level or degree of stability, because the feminine is not going to accept anything less. So that's the masculine that's almost, again, trying to determine what they want to identify whether they're ready to move forward with that level or degree of energetic commitment. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Queen of Pentacles and our Knight of Swords, both in their upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Four of Pentacles in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy working through this in separation. I have to say, there's a lot of this energetic equivalent to a certain extent. It's really feeling like that point. It's not something that feels like it's changeable. It doesn't feel like it's something that is adaptable. The feminine energy is almost looking towards a masculine and just identifying if it's there. Like the feminine energy is just looking at it and almost looking towards masculine in separation, saying, do you know which direction you're headed? Do you know where you're going? And that's the feminine energy that's just basically feeling like when they're asking the masculine for their manifestation goals. It's almost the feminine looking at it being like, if I ask someone where they're going and what they want and they can't answer, it's not my job to try to wait for them to figure it out. It's not my job to try to convince them that they should move in the direction that I'm moving in. This is the feminine energy coming through that breakthrough point in separation and being like, if I ask someone what they want and where they're going and they can't answer, I just have to assume that we're not going in the same direction. And that's why we see even now that that's a lot of the feminine energy in separation, just looking at it from that perception that allows for that point of breakthrough, because that's the feminine almost just looking at the masculine to a certain extent from the binary of being like, do you know what you want? Do you know where you're going? Do you know what you want with me? Do you know what you want with anyone? Right? And that moment or modality for the masculine, that ability, and I need to stress this for a lot of the masculine energy right now, if you feel like you're having a lot of those conversations, That recognition point of a feminine asking that isn't necessarily a feminine that is demanding commitment from you, right? That's a feminine energy that is just asking to see if you know what that is. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy, going through that moment in not taking something that is asked in that way energetically personal, but almost recognizing like that's not necessarily even a feminine that's saying, do you want that with me? But almost looking to you and saying, do you know what that is? That's a lot of the masculine energy right now that may be feeling a lot of emotions coming to the surface, because again, a lot of this work is the result of masculine that's been on this path work of trying to lead forward to feminine with a deeper sense of authenticity and clarity, right? When we hit these moments to a certain extent, these can be very triggering. These can be very challenging. These can bring up old wounds. This can also be the masculine saying, I'm doing it again. I'm starting to fall back into those past. I'm starting to allow my anxiety and my fear of being vulnerable to navigate me away from the possibility of an energetic connection with the feminine. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy doing this, one of the things that's important is at least your own ability to recognize what's happening within you instead of projecting it outwards to the feminine. Not expressing that or looking at that so much as a point of feeling like you're being attacked, or you feel like you're feeling defensive from the feminine, but almost seeing how something like a simple question might make you feel like you go through a whole range of emotions. Your own ability to sit in the stillness of that feeling is what is allowing a lot of the masculine energy, even in separation at this moment, to have that energetic breakthrough point, because you're identifying within you those emotions that sometimes feel like they're blocking your own blessing or standing in your own way. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, I got to stress what's happening is not that much has changed. On the outside, not that much has changed, but everything has changed. Suddenly, something around you that felt like it was totally fine and tenable is now feeling like it's unmanageable, right? Why? Because these are energies moving deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency that were perfectly fine. They were doing all that good work, healing and separation. But now as the bonds of intimacy grow, what feels like it was navigating and easy to navigate in solitude or in separation feels like everything around you is creating disharmony, because that's a reprioritization of where one's priority is. So as these energies continue to prioritize one another, then suddenly all of the energy around you feels like it is disruptive. It feels like it's in the way. It's not even that some of that has changed. What may have felt like it was totally like manageable not too long ago now feels like it's untenable, because you're creating something where something wasn't. And that's requiring a lot of shifting right now as you make tangible space for what you feel is being created in a very strong energetic connection. While for the energy right now, deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, a lot of this work in changing one's own perception of the past is having an impact on your own conviction in the present. The funny part about it is, it's not even that anything has changed. If this is deep path work, there's nothing here that's tangibly changed. All of this has been via the introspection. But that's that moment that we almost say to ourselves, I thought of something from a different perspective because of the energy of me being in something supportive with the counterpart, and that changed everything. Continuing to get clarification between our Knight of Swords in combination with our Page of Swords in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Flying off the table. Two of Swords. So many swords today. So many swords today. So a lot of this energetic conviction that is effectively occurring right now in relationality to just feeling that expansion point in relation to navigating forward in a way that your own feeling of presence or your own feeling of change has been accommodated or explored. Masculine and feminine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. I told you, one of the things that's happening right now for the energy that is working on a lot of this deep path work of the past has to do with experiencing and feeling something in a way that you didn't allow yourself to feel it before. And what does that create? Even now in some of the masculine energy doing that work, it feels like there's a little bit of volatility, because there's that moment that, like, it almost feels like, again, when we're healing something, it's not uncommon, especially if we allow ourselves to feel something, to go through those energetic waves that feels like that sense of certainty and strength and conviction, as well as anxiety, right? So even now we see that a lot of the energy of the masculine deep, doing a lot of that deep energetic work, that's almost that feeling, like, I want to put it this way, like if you're allowing yourself to feel something for the first time, and like you throw like a pebble in the water, like what happens when you throw a pebble in the water? It goes like this, right? So if you're going through that to a certain extent, masculine energy, I want you to think about it like you're just waiting for that water to settle to a certain extent. Because if these are new energetic breakthroughs, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for that to come into an easement point. Same with feminine right now. Same with feminine. Though I have to say, for the feminine energy going through this pathwork, it feels less like allowing oneself to emotionally settle into what feels like might be your new energetic normal, but more the feminine utilizing that breakthrough as a sense of energetic discernment in relationality to masculine energy. Because a lot of that work of the feminine is doing, like, just as we saw, I'll put it this way, just as we saw that a lot of masculine energy may have recognized that some of the wounds that they're trying to heal were a result of feminine energy that did not intend to hurt the masculine, but it was also a projection of the feminine energy's own wounds that were being expressed by the feminine, subjecting masculine energy to their pain inadvertently. This is the feminine energy, again, recognizing the difference and the valuation that often when the masculine energy hasn't done enough work on healing the self, it is the characterization of masculine energy that moves towards feminine with that sense of feeling like they know what's best for someone instead of wanting to see the best in someone. So feminine recognizing and identifying that the masculine energy that hasn't understood that or hasn't come into that lesson might not even see it within their own self. That is why this is the feminine almost feeling like their own perception has gotten sharpened in these lessons, because this is the feminine energy reminding themselves of the fact that the energy that moves towards feminine in that way doesn't have the ability to see that in themselves until they have come into the expression of being able to heal it. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, same exact lesson being learned. Because these are the energies that are coming into divine union that are bringing with them some of the wounds of the past. And that ability of seeing something from a different perspective, this is how the energy is integrating some of those lessons in a way that isn't allowing them to amplify or get righteous about anything that was outside the divine union frequency being negative or being bad. Because this is, again, if this is masculine energy that is looking towards those experiences from the past that were not in the same modality of divine union, this is almost a masculine energy reaffirming to themselves and saying, I wasn't energetically ready. I wasn't in a point of prioritizing the feminine to this capacity. I didn't know myself enough that I was able to create something in a space where there was nothing. I didn't recognize that that's not the fallen. Coming into divine union isn't something that you walk into. It's something that you create with your own hands and with your own intentions. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine, recognizing that can sometimes feel like that energy of waves of regret in relationality to the past that feels like it is being amplified by your own commitment of understanding in the present. But again, holding space and recognizing and saying to oneself, you cannot blame yourself for something that you did not know or understand. That's how a lot of the masculine energy is mitigating some of those feelings. While for feminine, that same ability, recognizing spaces or places where feminine may have felt like the energy of, past experiences was the amplification of masculine that may have moved towards feminine with that sense of wanting what's best for them, instead of desiring to see the best of feminine. That's the feminine saying, I need to work on that is also the feminine saying, that pathwork of energetic discernment, knowing myself helps me see others with a greater degree of clarity. How can we see something in others if we can't see ourselves clearly. So again, these energies focusing and sharpening their own energetic lessons, not being leaning on the counterpart, but the perception of being in the experience with healed energy helps identify a lesson on a deeper level. Masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now. This is why the feminine energy isn't waiting or holding space for a masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, that isn't able to articulate on what their aspirations are as it relates to partnership or even the future in general. This is the feminine energy saying, it's not my role or responsibility to bring that forth in the masculine. Seeing a masculine that's able to articulate and tell the feminine what they want isn't an accomplishment. It should be a requirement. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. That's a feminine energy, recognizing that for the masculine to be able to articulate to the feminine what they desire isn't an accomplishment. It is a requirement. That is the breakthrough that a lot of the feminine energy is navigating in separation, which is why the feminine energy is either like it's there or it's not. It's not the feminine's job to inquire as to why or to ask oneself how to bring it forth. The feminine's just navigating and looking at it from that perspective. And that in itself is the feminine feeling the sense of conviction and reaffirming their own pathwork of discernment going forward. While for masculine energy right now, that sense of recognizing and understanding it is not the feminine's energy. It is not the feminine's goal. Like it is not a relationship goal to decide that you want to be with a feminine, but rather your own commitment in terms of what it is that you want in partnership should be the requirement that you must bring forth. That is more challenging for some of the masculine energy because it requires a level and degree of vulnerability and an ability to articulate what your heart's desire is towards the feminine. That can feel very frightening. It can feel very triggering. It can like send that army rushing out of your closet that doesn't need to be there. You got to send them back into their closet because it's ridiculous. But that ability to do so, that's a masculine saying, only by knowing myself and being able to speak my intention towards the feminine can I hope to have that future manifestation. So we see even now both of these energies holding firm to what their conviction of the past lesson is. It's a little bit easier for feminine today because this is the space or place where the masculine energy, yesterday we saw it was harder for the feminine. Today we see it's harder for the masculine because this is the masculine feeling the anxiety and fear and being able to speak that desire into energetic existence. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Page of Swords in its reversal in combination with our Eight of Pentacles in its reversal. Clarification coming through right now with our Hermit in its reversal. So why is this work so significant right now? Why is it so challenging? Because feminine energy is navigating, even now, if these are new energetic connections that are forming, the reason that the feminine energy is working so hard on building that point of stability is, as I said, feminine energy recognizes that they're not building into partnership with the desire just not to be alone. If this is feminine energy that has been doing this work, this is the feminine energy that identifies the difference between true companionship versus something that feels more the energetic equivalent to someone who's just looking for some company, right? This is the feminine energy that's almost affirming to the masculine and saying, make no mistake, if we are in separation, while I appreciate you, while I may potentially appreciate spending time with you, feminine energy is almost articulating to the masculine and saying, I am not existing to be just company to keep you occupied or to hold some space for you when you don't feel like being energetically alone. That is why the feminine energy is almost looking towards the masculine now and saying, you need to articulate what it is that you're truly driving towards, because this is the feminine energy that's almost amplifying and saying to the masculine, if in separation, if you are trying to talk to me or build forth in expressing your past experiences, and we're building this energetic connection, but you can't articulate as it relates to what it is that you want, what it is you desire, what you desire to build forth with me, then that is the feminine that is almost articulating and saying to the masculine, then that's the difference between me feeling like I'm looking for someone who actually is building and wants to have a strong energetic connection, versus someone who is effectively just looking to have a connection with feminine because they would like a bit of energetic company. And that is that moment that the feminine is almost coming into that point of deep energetic rejection, because that's the feminine energy that's almost saying to the masculine, I don't have time to expend on being someone else's energetic company. I'm looking for someone that is invested in building upon a true long-term energetic commitment. For masculine energy, that same sense to a certain extent upon building through in this way is being amplified by the point of recognizing that the feminine energy, if in separation, if all you're able to do is talk about the past, if all you're able to do is build in the construct of the present, that is the feminine energy that's effectively seeing you as someone that is not invested in building forward with feminine, but is just looking for energetic company. So you can imagine that if you're healed masculine energy, the last thing that you would desire is being misunderstood on the part of the feminine energy, or misconstrued as someone who is just looking and seeking energetic company as opposed to commitment. So we see even now that that's a lot of the masculine energy working through the ability to have the courage to be able to articulate to the feminine what it is that you aspire and desire going forward, or feeling that anxiety of fear of the feminine energy moving away from you for the sake of not wanting to feel like their time is being energetically wasted. But that is requiring a level and degree of authenticity from masculine that is almost requiring that level or degree of heightened introspection in order to articulate to the feminine what it is that you truly want going forward. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the divine union frequency, this is that affirmation of pathwork in the feeling that something that may have felt like it was easy and navigable in the past is becoming more and more of an energetic burden, because we see that a lot of this energy right now is coming into that moment of transformation. I'm not surprised to see this now that we're coming out of that slowness of Taurus into Gemini season. So that what happens in the moment that we're going to change? What happens in the moment that there's transformation? We have to experience discomfort. We experience discomfort prior to an energetic transformation occurring, because that discomfort articulates what feels like it is manageable, what feels like it is navigable, versus what feels like it is untenable. The energy coming into divine union is creating something where nothing existed. That beauty of creating something between energetic counterparts, it affects the energy around you to such an extent that things that feel like they were normal or feel like they were enjoyable before are now starting to feel more like that energetic burden. So we see that this is a lot of that planning that we saw, that a lot of the energy moving deeper into the divine union is experiencing right now, all for the sake of creating better easement in maintaining that energetic connection in a stronger, more viable way. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, that ability to do so, that work of looking back on the deep past with a sense of clarity, it can feel very frustrating, because I'm going to say it again, for energy that was holding on to these wounds for so long and not seeing them via the context wherein you can recognize and identify something that you're seeing now, that a point of understanding that some of these wounds are so deeply held, they were so far in the past, that it took the feeling of energetic security of being in the presence of a healed counterpart to be able to face them. That is a little bit of the balm that's being put on them, because that's that moment that feels like the expansion point, that the energy isn't doing this work for the sake of the energetic counterpart. But it certainly couldn't be something that is done alone, because we saw even now that this work is being amplified by having the healed counterpart energy present with you as you go through that internal introspection. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. between our Four of Pentacles in its upright and our Four of Wands in its reversal. So double fours right now. I told you a lot of this like flipping back and forth that we're experiencing right now between polarities, which is again some of that Gemini energy. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. Yeah, I mean, when you're moving forward back and forth and like this, it's no surprise that it can create some feelings of instability or frustration to a certain extent. Because what we're effectively identifying at moments like this, I told you, for a lot of the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency right now, that ability of not being able to see something before in the way that you currently see it, it feels a little bit ungrounding, because what you're effectively have been doing over the last few weeks is identifying within you what can be best described as an energetic blind spot. If you are moving through something and you look back on something in the deep past and you see something with a clarity of perception that you're only now identifying and recognizing, it can feel a little ungrounding, because it immediately begs the question, well, what else did I miss, right? It's like you're going back to a book and being like, I didn't know that was on page 4. What else did I miss? Like it's one of those moments that can feel a little unsettling, but the unsettling has to do with recognizing what may be best described as an internal blind spot. But again, how do we navigate through internal blind spots? That's why we do our shadow work. That's why we do that journey into those parts of ourselves that are hard to see. Because how could you see something if you're working to avoid it? So we see even now that a lot of that work that's being facilitated there is the recognition point in the understanding of being ready, like one's own sense of being prepared to confront something that is difficult is effectively how we protect ourselves from occurring and experiencing what could be best described as energetic blind spots. And the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency is reaffirming that the reason that this wasn't an energetic blind spot, this is something that instead you felt only now ready to truly face. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the divine union frequency, this is that moment of shifting of priorities. The reason everything, if you're coming into that moment where you're coming into divine union and suddenly everything around you feels like it's like falling apart, you need to ask yourself, is anything actually falling apart, or has your priorities changed to such an extent that the things around you no longer feel like they're tenable? Because we see even now that there's a lot of shifting of the priorities. There's a lot of shifting of plans, because I told you the energy coming into divine union is creating something where something was not prior to that. So when you drop something, like when you drop a stone in the water, there's going to be ripples. So we see even now that the energy is working through any of that frustration, but it's being amplified by their own sense of energetic commitment that is, again, navigating through any of the insecurity that is being experienced in relationality to not immediately having that path work or plan going forward. So there could be a lot of work right now for a lot of the energy coming into divine union in building forward, in clarifying what those plans are, to feel like that sense like that energetic sense of protectiveness that doesn't feel so much of like a feeling of insecurity, so much as it feels like it's productive. While we see for a lot of the energy in separation right now, this could be, I gotta say, I saw a lot of new energy that was making connections right now. I gotta tell you, a lot of energy right now going through that process of going through the cycle of discernment to navigate whether you're in alignment a lot faster than they were previously, right? There's just a lot of energy right now. And I need to stress this. If you're going through that process of moving away from something faster, then that in a way feels like it is a gift, because this is a lot of energy that is not putting off something that is hard. This is energy that is identifying and saying, rather do something now than go to the trouble of going down a path that I recognize isn't the right path or isn't the same path. That is why we see even now that a lot of the feminine energy is really asking the masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. This is not feminine energy. I have to stress this. This is not feminine energy seeking a commitment from masculine, especially if these are new connections that are forming. This is feminine energy trying to identify if the energy of masculine is committed to manifesting commitment. If you understand what I mean, that is that moment of identifying and wanting to just recognize the difference between masculine energy that may be only moving towards feminine, seeking energetic company, like the manifestation goal is just energetic company, as opposed to masculine energy that is truly seeking pathwork of building forward with feminine. So we see even now that feminine energy is very much like talking about this Gemini energy coming into play very quickly. That moment of saying it's either there or it's not. The masculine energy is either looking for a company or they're looking to build something in the long term. And that's a feminine energy saying, it's not my responsibility to cultivate that in the masculine. That is not something that is an accomplishment if I bring it forth in the masculine. That is a requirement in order to build forward with me. So that in itself is the amplification of the change that the feminine is experiencing right now, which is why the feminine energy is being, and I have to say this, energetically resilient in not being able to take a wait and see approach, but almost just looking to the masculine and saying we can wait and see as much as we want. This isn't about commitment. This is about you necessarily identifying the difference of moving forward from a place where you know what you're trying to manifest versus recognizing that some masculine energy just wants to manifest company. And that typically that the masculine energy that just wants to manifest company will be a little less verbose in wanting to do that, recognizing that the feminine energy does not want to be manifesting company. And feminine almost articulating and saying, if that's what the masculine energy is trying to manifest, then even that must be articulated. And we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy, that recognition point of seeing feminine that is almost looking towards masculine and saying, do you truly know what you want? Or are you going to be in that facet of just trying to take time from me, trying to take energy from me? This is the masculine that, if they're on the healing journey, is trying to be more articulate to feminine as it relates to what they want, to be able to amplify, to say to the feminine, rest assured, that is not me. I'm not someone that's just looking to take up space. I have goals, I have aspirations, I have desires. And masculine recognizing that the only way that the feminine can tell the difference between masculine energy that is just working to manifest spending, having company, not being energetically alone, versus masculine that's truly invested in building forward with feminine, is in the articulation of the masculine being able to talk about their manifestation goals going forward. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Wands in its reversal and our Two of Swords in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Three of Wands. You got to have a plan. You got to have a plan. And what we appreciate right now for the energy in separation, and this is why we saw even now a lot of these energies were building new energetic bridges by speaking a lot about the past, talking a lot about those experiences, feeling that similarity in relationality to what they perceived or experienced, that has kind of reached an impasse moment for a lot of energy in separation right now, because I told you that's only one half of the bridge. Being able to talk openly about the past and discern what needed to be changed and what you're trying to correct going forward is half of that work. The other half is the plan. And so we see a lot of the energy right now looking towards the counterpart and saying, it's great that you were able to do that work, but the difference between someone that is caught in the past and is caught constantly ruminating on the past is the balance point between letting the energetic past serve as a tool to articulate what it is that you want going forward, as opposed to someone that is talking about the past because they desire to go back to it. So we see even now like a lot of that energy amplifying and saying, great, I know a lot about you now. I know a lot about your past. What is it that you want going forward? What is it that you see going forward? And that ability to identify that ability to articulate it is what is allowing that sense of discernment right now between energy that is almost feeling that sense of potentially experiencing or encountering someone who is halfway healed, that is doing the work of energetically reviewing the past to try to derive insight from it, but hasn't come into the moment of being able to amplify that sense of taking that path work and putting it forward in relationality to what they aspire and desire as they go forward from this point. This is the energy that's just effectively looking at that and saying where, like, both energies, masculine feeling the challenge point and being able to articulate it to the feminine from a point of confidence. Because that's the masculine, again, feeling the anxiety of rejection in relationality to what they bring forth the feminine, and whether the feminine is willing to receive them in that modality of what they're trying to manifest. But also the masculine realizing that that is the other part of their energetic path work. Or this is feminine energy that's, again, saying it's not my responsibility. It's not a hurrah moment if I get a masculine to articulate to me what they want going forward. That is a requirement. That is the feminine saying, that is not too much to ask. That is the bare minimum. That is not a goal to be achieved. That is the standard. That was a lot of the work of the feminine. I told you, taking the energetic boundary, turning it into the standard. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now. This is the energetic equivalent of experiencing and feeling like you found someone that you're doing that path work with. This is the energy that has built that manifestation. They share those goals. What happens the minute that you're able to share a manifestation goal with someone and you realize that you're on the same page? Suddenly everything in the present context starts feeling a lot less comfortable. It starts feeling like the present is more of like an uncomfy sweater, if you will, because that's that moment that you suddenly realize that you're talking and you're aspiring for a present that isn't here yet. And that's not a moment of like pie in the skying it. That's the energy that's like, why don't we just move towards that? So everything that's in the way of them moving towards that right now, that's that moment that the present experience, the more you come into divine union, starts feeling more frustrating, because suddenly something that felt perfectly fine at the moment that you're experiencing it in separation now feels like it's just unnecessary, or it's creating inconvenience, because this is the energy that's effectively reoriented their manifestation goals to what they're creating together. While for masculine and feminine energy that is deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is the perception of the past that is creating a little trepidation, because what happens if we're able to see something from the deep past that we were holding a wound on, and now our own perception has changed the way that we're carrying it? It's a little bit of that anxiety that comes into play, is suddenly going, what else did I miss? And that's why I told you, remember how there's a little bit of that domino effect in recognizing something like that, because that's that moment that almost takes that revisiting of not just like one situation from the past wherein you're ready to heal, but potentially having to go back to other experiences as well, and putting that same application into play to recognize your own perception may have changed, not just on something that you needed, that you were carrying a deep wound on, but maybe even a bunch of places that you were holding slightly less difficult wounds, or even worse, places where you may have recognized that your own expression of not seeing a wound may have caused a point in how you address something that you yourself, even at the time of doing it, could not see. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Two of Swords and its upright and our Hermit in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Three of Swords. It's got to hurt to heal. It's got to hurt to heal across all of the frequencies. The beautiful thing that's happening here is the immediate easement of frustration and guilt and fear in terms of what needs to be healed here. It's just the observation. A lot of the energy working through that pathwork of recognizing that doubt, guilt, blame doesn't really serve the energetic purpose. It doesn't help. It usually creates wounds. Regret, blame, doubt, they don't serve the energetic purpose. So we see even now that for the energy that's moving through that, especially the ones doing the work deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, that is immediately healing that moment. Because if you're feeling that sense of regret, you're almost reaffirming to yourself and saying, I cannot blame myself for something that I could not see. Right? That is the energy that's basically saying, I cannot blame myself. Hindsight is 20/20 because hindsight is broken. I'm recognizing that my perception of the present is the gift. It's the gift that I'm bringing towards the past. It's not something that I was missing that only now I'm finding. It is a gift that only now I received. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is that moment that you're looking to the other and you're saying, you are my healing. Right? This is the energy that doesn't feel like they're coming into divine union and the divine union is interrupting their own healing journey. If these are energies that are suddenly working on building and integrating each other's insecurities into their own, and finding that sense and state of compassion and that feeling of wholeness and being accepted even in those moments that you feel the most weak or the most insecure. This is the energy that feels like the expansion of a healing in partnership, because that's the energy that says, you do not impede my healing journey. You expand upon it by showing me my energetic blind spots, the counterpart that doesn't move in the same way as us, but is able to complement our own healing journey. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is in separation, this is some ripping the Band-Aid off in separation right now. This is energy that's saying better to hurt now than hurt later. If these are new energetic connections that are forming, they are being navigated very quickly and saying, this is great, this is good, the direction's going in. Are we moving in the same direction? Are you actually seeking a direction? Are you just looking for company? Are you halfway healed? Because that ability of building a bridge from the past needs to be amplified in the ability to talk about what you want going forward. And the energy isn't sticking around if someone isn't clear about identifying that. The energy is just being observant as to whether someone can articulate what it is that they want. Because this is the energy saying, if you lack an ability to communicate about this, either one of two things is happening. Either you are too afraid, you have not come into that space of finding the energetic confidence to be able to articulate on what your manifestations goals are. That is untenable. That is not something an outside energy can help with. There's only one person that can fix that, and that's the confidence of the self. And that's energy that's saying, it seems like you're not ready, right? Or that's the energy that's saying, if you're not articulating a manifestation goal, it's because there's something about that you feel that I would not I would not share that manifestation. And if I cannot share the manifestation, then better to move away from the manifestation, because you're articulating that your manifestation only serves your own energetic needs. And it's such that you don't feel comfortable sharing it with another because you recognize that they might not necessarily want to share in that manifestation goal. So we see even now that those energies are like, it doesn't matter why. It's important to the person to understand why. But honestly, at the end of the day, both of those contexts effectively, energetically lead to the same result, which is why a lot of the energy is almost like if it's expressing itself in that way, sad but true, there's no way to identify the difference between. It's more just something that needs to be healed from. So a lot of these processes occurring much more rapidly right now as energy moves with a lot more conviction towards their manifestation goals. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Nine of Wands in combination with our Three of Wands. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through with the King of Pentacles. We've got the combination here of the Queen and the King of Pentacles. So this is really beautiful because, again, for masculine energy in separation, that sense, if this is an energy that is working on their own confidence and conviction, then this is a solvable problem. If this is an energy that is recognizing that the feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, is feeling that trepidation because of the fear of the masculine not being able to articulate what those manifestation goals are, then for the masculine energy, that sense of confidence that comes into play in being able to navigate and articulate it is the way that the masculine can almost recognize and bring energetic security to the feminine. Because this is the masculine energy that's almost saying to the feminine, make no mistake, I'm very confident on what I want. I want to create that sense of confidence in you. I want you to understand and recognize that I'm not someone that's trying to build around you, and I'm not trying to just have company with you. I'm looking for someone to build with. I'm looking for someone to create with. And I recognize that I need to overcome my own fears of vulnerability to articulate that if I ever aspire and desire for it to happen. So I told you there's a lot of connections that could be deepening today, going deeper into the heart of the divine, proceeding into the divine union frequency, or there's a lot of energies that are articulating what that is from a state of confidence and saying, this is what I can offer at this time. Let me know if you're willing to receive that. Because for a lot of the energy right now, not seeing that ability to articulate on what those are is going to potentially lead to a moment like moments of separation. Because this is the feminine energy that is amplifying to the masculine and saying, make no mistake, I am seeking masculine energy that is confident enough in their own self that they know what they are seeking. That's almost the feminine saying, it doesn't even matter what that expression is. The energy of the feminine is manifesting masculine that is secure in what they want and has an ability to articulate through it, even through their own fear. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is coming into divine union, this is that moment that feels like the energetic tie that binds, because these are the energies that are navigating forward towards one another through their fear, through their anxiety. They're not subjecting one another to it. They're not coming into that state of reactivity on each other's insecurities. These are energies that have seen each other in moments of stress, but been able to hold a point of resiliency through those moments, and that becomes the energetic tie that binds, because that is that moment of feeling and experiencing and seeing someone and saying, I have seen you at your worst. And even at your worst, you were at your best. And that moment of the expression of saying one is not looking to the other for that strength, but feeling that sense of conviction, feeling that sense of purpose. That is that moment that almost feels like a sense of saying to someone, I don't need to be in a relationship to ask you to be perfect. I'm saying that every context that I have seen you in is perfect, which is the identification of alignment, because that is the acceptance of vulnerability, that even in that point of vulnerability, there is still love that exists. While for masculine and feminine energy, the ability of these energies to feel that security in one another is what is allowing the energy to explore places and spaces within themselves that they have felt too insecure or afraid to experience before. Because again, these are the energies that are feeling so much of that energetic support in the divine union frequency, that if they're holding something with insecurity, that's that moment that feels like the gift of love that says, I care, your own ability to create consistency has given me the ability to let go of something that I thought I could never let go of, to heal something that I thought I could never heal. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Three of Wands in its upright and our Three of Swords. Do you see all the combination cards that we have today? It's Gemini season. We've got the 2 4s out next to each other. We got the 2 3s out next to each other. And we've got the King and Queen of Pentacles. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our 5 of Wands. Masculine and feminine energy. This is the energy that has felt enough healing within one another, that sense of healing that has come forward in the connection itself, that it is allowing the energy to confront what may have felt like it was unconfrontable before within the self. This is the energy that's ready, that's doing that work, and that's not doing the work for the sake of another. That's not going on a crusade for another person. That's not feeling like one needs to change for another person. That's the energy that says, you have created a space in me of peace that allows me to go in and internal and navigate those parts of me that I haven't been able to experience and I haven't been able to address before. Because that's the energy that is coming into that sense of energetic perfection while already experiencing it. It's almost that sense of finding themselves by going deeper into the heart of their own self for the sake of that sense of, and like that's the energy that says, I don't want to hold conflict in a place where I know it is not necessary, right? That's that moment of the energy, like almost saying like, I'm ready to let this go, and I'm ready to do the hard work of letting something go inside of me if it creates that sense of insecurity, because I know there's no place for it here. I know there's no need for it. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is the energy that is creating this in the process. This is the energy that has found that peace in one another, that is amplifying the ability to like accommodate and make changes in the external world, because that is the beauty of the divine union, the beauty of creating something where there was nothing, that is changing and now like taking what may have previously felt was peaceful in solitude. That moment of combining your own journeys is like suddenly that point of conflict is now allowing for that sense of transformation. While for the energy right now in separation, there could be some conflict here today. Either internal conflict, or I'm going to warn, like potentially making sure that there are productive conversations if there are conflicts occurring. Because all of this in separation has to do with identifying and understanding where something is going. So there's a lot of energy in separation that's just bringing that forth sooner and saying, I don't like the energy saying that isn't something that is a milestone when we can talk about the future. That's something that you need to bring to the table at the time of making an energetic connection, because that is the amplification of the difference between someone who is trying to keep company or only halfway healed or uncertain where they're going, versus energy that has worked through their own healing process in relationality to being able to articulate what they want to be able to manifest it going forward via the connection to a counterpart. Final card for today's spread between our King of Pentacles and our Five of Wands. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Page of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of energy in separation. If these are new energetic connections, a lot of energy where the rubber's hitting the road a lot faster, especially for the feminine energy. If this is feminine energy that's starting to build towards new connections to masculine, this is feminine energy that is not afraid of creating conflict for the sake of recognizing and understanding another person's intentions. That is the breakthrough point for a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now. That feeling of saying, I'm not afraid to rock the boat to make sure I know that the boat is moving in a particular direction. That's the feminine energy that's almost coming into the point of saying to the masculine, I'm ready to inhabit whatever your manifestation goal is, but you need to have a direction that you feel that you can express to me. That's not something that should be worked to be some kind of achievable milestone. That should just be something that is present. That's not something that the feminine is trying to cultivate in the masculine. That is something that feminine is trying to see in a masculine. And that's the feminine energy feeling the accomplishment of a lot of the path work right now, if in separation, saying, I'm willing to surrender something energetically if asking that question requires that moment of something moving away from me, because that's the feminine energy saying, if there's a masculine manifestation that moves away from me at the time that I just ask what their intentions are or what that path work is, then that's the feminine energy that says, I've just identified the energy of the masculine that is either too afraid to discuss their manifestation goals, or their manifestation goals are such that they don't want to share them with me. While for the masculine energy, this is a lot of that moment of coming into confidence, but it may feel like a lot of conflicting with oneself, because this is a lot of the work of the masculine, really grounding a lot of the lessons that you may have taken from the last energetic cycle into play, especially if this is masculine energy that moved away from circumstances or situations, articulating that need and desire of not wanting to build forth with feminine from a place of illusion. The way that you build forward from a place that lacks illusion with feminine requires a sense of grounding and assurance in oneself and confidence, and recognizing that if you articulate a desire to the feminine in terms of what you're trying to manifest, and the feminine does not share that, that is not an act of rejection. That's an act of correction in recognizing that that is not in alignment with what you are experiencing from a place of honesty and clarity. So we see even now that that's a lot of the masculine energy feeling like they're coming into a point of energetic maturity. But it does require a little bit of conflict with the self as you do so, because again, this may be feeling like you're battling some of that past version of self as you try to come into a deepened sense of clarity and authenticity. While for masculine and that's a masculine saying, if I want stable feminine energy, then I must become that as well. While for masculine and feminine energy, coming into divine union, this is the energy that's already done so. And this is the energy that what may have felt fine prior to being in divine union is now feeling untenable because one's priorities are shifting. These are energies that are shifting where the priorities are becoming more and more the energetic connection between the counterpart. And that moment is taking something that may have felt like it was fine when you were working on that healing journey in solitude or in separation. Suddenly, what was working just fine in solitude is now creating the conflict point, which is why we see a lot of potential transformation that is occurring over, like, as we proceed forward down these paths. While for the energy right now that is coming in, that's deep in the heart of the divine union, this is the energy that is challenging themselves. Because again, a lot of that affirmation or commitment has not to do so much with what you're doing for the counterpart, but the fact that the counterpart is bringing out the ability to be your best version of self. And that's something that you feel is worth fighting for. Bottom of the deck on this reading today is Hierophant in its reversal. There's a lot of unconventionality that is taking place right now in relationality to all of the frequencies. Masculine and feminine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. That ability of seeing something in a way that you haven't seen it before, or carrying something in a different way, it may be shifting and changing one's own opinions or thoughts, particularly in relation to some kind of like standard that you set yourself on, right? When we do this work of identifying things that we identify as blind spots in ourselves, it sometimes makes us question some things that we saw and perceived, because that is almost that changing, as it were, in our own belief in ourselves that requires that adjustment point. So even now there's a little bit of that malleability that's taking root. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is that moment where the connection and bond that you feel between the counterpart, it's almost like not there in the tangible space. It's almost something that can't be expressed. That's why we see so much of this frustration in the tangible world, because what you experience between you, it doesn't require a tangibility point to exist. It's more just making it tangible that feels like a hurdle that needs to be overcome. While for masculine and feminine in separation, this is all about whether there's commitment. It's all about the question of commitment. It's all about the question of commitment. And it's not the fact of someone, I need to stress this. This is not energy that's saying you must commit to me. This is the energy that is looking towards the counterpart, the potential counterparts, and saying, are you invested in commitment? What does that look like? Walk me through it. I'm not going to assume that you are. I actually want to understand what that looks like for you. That is our daily collective read for today. I'd like to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind when you book a private reading, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading and you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. Also, just a few updates before we close out our reading for today. First and foremost, if you did not, thank you to everyone who joined us last week with our tarot class on the Magician. We will be having our next class on Wednesday, June 16th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. That class will be focusing on the High Priestess card. For any of you who are interested, my tarot church classes are held over on Substack. Each month we meet to go into a deep dive on a different card in the tarot. All you need to do to become a part of those classes is become a paid subscriber to my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription will include free access to each month's live classes, as well as the recordings and course materials for all of the previous classes. Also, you will receive access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students, wherein you can ask any questions in relation to tarot and your own personal journey or anything that we are learning in those classes. Also, if you become a founding member to my Substack, not only do you receive discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you also receive a free 1 hour mentorship reading with me, wherein we will assess and review where you are on your own personal tarot journey, and I'll give you the best information on how to utilize the classes and your own pathwork to the best purposes going forward. One of the things I did with these classes that I really tried to create them so that they would be useful for both the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's a bit of something for everyone. So thank you so much to everyone who's already joining us on that journey. And I look forward to potentially seeing you at our next class. Or even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay abreast of any new information, classes, courses, events that we may be planning. You'll also get access to our weekly newsletter. Second, thank you to everybody who took our survey last month. We have announced a winner to that free tarot reading, but if you did not take the survey, there is still time to now, because we are running another contest giveaway. I am giving away not one, but 2 free 15-minute tarot readings. That is going to be based, though, on referrals. So if you've already taken the survey, if you would like more possibilities to enter, all you need to do is send that survey to a friend. When I pull the winner for this month's tarot giveaway, I will ask the winner who referred them to take the travel survey. So for everyone, whoever that is, will also get a reading. So the more people that you refer, the more entries you will receive. Again, and that link is in my bio if you would like to take that survey. It takes about 2 minutes. Again, I'm really excited about these new opportunities in relationality to where we might go moving forward. And I'm really excited. I've got my own opinions, but I really would like to get your insights on where that might be and what you would like to do. Finally, I'm really excited to announce that we have a few new offerings that I'm offering my clientele. First and foremost, we now have mentorship classes that are available. They can be purchased on an individual basis or a monthly class package of 4 45-minute classes at a discount. So those are going to be at a limited number, and they are specifically for my clients that are invested on education on a specific area or topic, which is why I keep them limited. Thank you guys to everybody who asked me for those. I'm really excited to proceed forward with you in that way. And secondly, for those clients that are looking for more consistent support on their own journey, I am now offering packages of weekly tarot insight. Those are 4 30-minute readings that can be read for throughout the month, that will give you a weekly update in relationality to what you are potentially experiencing and how you can best utilize the energy at hand to help you on your own journey. Again, thank you guys so much. A lot of these new offerings are coming at the recommendation of my clientele. So thank you to everybody who's already signed up, and I look forward to potentially working with you in the future. That's it for us today. I hope you guys have an absolutely beautiful day. Please take care of each other, and we will do this again